Yeah, time to wake up and have a closer look at things. Trees to the left, intact, check. Trees in the front, intact, check. Trees in the back, intact, check. House in the middle looks like it's been disintegrated with microsurgical precision by some infernal hellfire. A tree burning from the inside, a scene right out of an apocalyptic nightmare. Have a good look at it. I hope you'll never see this thing ever again. Next we have melted cars. Toasted melted cars. Now where have we seen this before? It's been a while, but we've seen this somewhere. Yes, 9/11. That's where we've seen these melted cars. Or they used to call them toasted cars, right here. 9/11, 16 years ago. Please keep this in mind, we'll get back to that later. But let's start at the beginning. After the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, followed by the official narrative of the lone gunman theory presented by the US government, it came to pass that many Americans did not buy this story and began to investigate on their own. By 1967, this prompted the release of CIA document 1035-960, which was released to CIA proxy media outlets CBS, NBC, ABC, and the New York Times, and coined the phrase conspiracy theorist, a derogatory term aimed to discredit critics of the official government narrative. Today, 50 years later, this propaganda term is still in use, and it can help us to identify moles and government shills in the alternative media, as we shall see. Today, opposite the mainstream media, the internet has created a playing ground in which each and every one can have a voice, leading to a majority rule scenario among common think people, sharing ideas free of the once government-controlled media outlets we were once confined to. In response, the government started to implement the tactics used in the document 1035-960, adapting to the ever-changing environment in order to maintain its psychological grip on the population and to continue its parasitic existence through the Federal Reserve, enforced by the military-industrial complex. This requires a majority complacency that can only continue if its hosts, the American people, are unaware to the cancerous and criminal nature of its parasite. This first came in the form of debunkers, which despite of the wealth of evidence in the truther community claimed the opposite, and made it a goal to destroy the character of the truther. Now, when these debunkers first enter the community, they do so agreeing with most, if not all, the commonly agreed upon facts as they grow their audience, such as 9/11 and the role of the Zionists playing our government. Later, as they grow a substantial following with enough income to self-sustain, they then have a dramatic change of tune.
I absolutely fully accept that, it seems very strong probability, if not close to certainty, that what happened on 9/11 is not the official events. And of course, that would be completely consistent with war in the past. That would not shock me at all, that the official story was not the case. There's also some indications that the bombing of the World Trade Centers in 1992, I think it was, or 93, that was funded by and with the full knowledge of the FBI. There's simply no way that a steel structure could collapse based on a fire, right? I think steel melts at 1600 degrees, the fire never got that warm. So the idea that you need to somehow step around all of those confessions and go down this infinite twisty head rabbit hole of 9/11 conspiracy stuff is because you simply don't want to effect change against the government. You'd rather self-indulge your fantasies of paranoia and conspiracy theories. And so the idea that you need this in order to push back against the expansionist power state is ridiculous. You are discrediting the freedom movement by stepping around the confessed crimes of the state and trying to convict them on something that is like chasing Casper the Friendly Ghost in a tilt-a-whirl while strung up on acid and being beaten in the head by a monkey with sparklers in its fists. I know I've said some strong things, but I, was pretty patient trying to get the evidence from you, but I think you're working against the cause that you claim. And I think you really need to revisit what it is that you're doing with the time that you have left in this world, because right now, pretty sure you're serving the enemy.
So once a creep like this is found out and brought to light,
you'd rather self-indulge your fantasies of paranoia and conspiracy theories.
All that's left to do is have a look at who he is associating with. I'd like to get back to the toasted cars for a moment, because what we're talking about here are directed energy weapons. These weapons have been used in 9/11 and they have been used since last year in Portugal, as we will see in a moment, and also at the beginning of this video you saw some of the huge wildfires, or this is what they call them, in California, all done with directed energy weapons. I urge everybody, inform yourselves about this matter. It is very serious.
Now look at this. The fire supposedly it was a wildfire, so it's spreading through the vegetation. Okay. Now the vegetation here still got its leaves on, and all the thin branches, which should have been the first ones to burn, are still there. And yet the heat was so intense, it was able to completely destroy these vehicles. Look at them. All the glass is melted out, the metal's buckled and deformed. All the paint's burnt off. So it's an intense heat, and yet the heat was supposed to have reached the cars from the vegetation, the trees, and the trees are intact. Look at this car, it's melted into the road. Even the tarmac and the road is melted, given way, and yet the trees have still got bark on them. Look. Now this is a directed energy weapon, focused heat. Right, but the engine's completely exposed, it's destroyed the car, and yet these little thin spindly branches all perfectly intact. Those trees should have burnt away. Look at what it's done to the road. Okay, this is directed energy, microwave beam weapon from above. This is the same way that they brought down the Twin Towers. Same technology. Look at that. All those leaves are still on the trees. And yet the intense heat was so intense that it destroyed this vehicle. And yet the vehicle completely incinerated at a very high temperature. Road destroyed. Look at it. All the surfaces. Looks like they just run a beam along there and kept the beam going as it's gone down the road.
While hundreds of people vanished, most likely incinerated instantly in their sleep, and no mainstream media mentioning any suspicions, social and alternative media not only feel the ever-tightening grip of censorship, but are under attack from the inside by shills and other assorted snakes.
So the idea that you need to somehow step around all of those confessions and go down this infinite twisty head rabbit hole of 9/11 conspiracy stuff is because you simply don't want to effect change against the government. I have steadfastly resisted conspiracy theories.
When you walk through the garden